Rob and Carrie. News Talk 92.3 KTAR. The voice of Arizona.
1 in 68 U.S. children have now been diagnosed or will be diagnosed with autism. That's changed, and it changes every single year. So we've got Dr. Dan Openden with us. He's the president and CEO of SARC, the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center. Dr. Dan, appreciate you coming into the studio, first of all. And second of all, what do you make of these numbers, 1 in 68 children?
You know, it's interesting. We've seen the numbers increase with each successive report that comes out. So on some level, I don't think we're tremendously surprised by it. But you can't help but just be shocked about what that really means. 1 in 64 kids, right? You know, we've 30 kids in a public school classroom, so it's a little bit more than 2 classrooms full. I mean, it's just they're mind-boggling numbers in so many ways.
The question always is there more autism out there, or are we diagnosing it better? Is there a simple answer to that?
The simple answer to that would be probably a little bit of both. Okay. So, you know, as we've seen the numbers of autism continue to rise, we can explain really about 50% of that causes an increase. And a lot of that probably is better diagnostics and better awareness, better diagnostic tools. There's still another 50% of what's happening in this increase that we have no idea about and don't understand really well. And that's why organizations like SARC and others in our community are so important, because we got to figure out what to do with these 1 in now 68 kids that are being diagnosed.
Let's go there for a second. Dr. Dan Openden with us, President CEO of SARC. We're going to be out at SARC on Wednesday next week doing our annual radiothon to try to help raise some funds so you can take care of these kids. If 1 in 68, again, that number that puts it in perspective is, you know, of every 2 classrooms, one of those kids will be on this spectrum. So how do you if you have more diagnosed, how much more important it is for you guys to be there at SARC, and how many more kids do you see coming in every year? Is this a constant stream?
Yeah, we still struggle with wait lists, and we feel strongly that every day that a child is on a wait list is one day too long. The challenge is that, you know, autism is a severe disability. This is not something that's really mild and you can just, you know, do a quick class and you're better a week later. I mean, it takes really intensive, high quality treatment to be able to help these kids get better. The good news is that with that treatment, our kids get better, our adults get better, our teens get better. But we have to invest the right amount of time, effort, and energy in doing that. So the reason why Action for Autism is so important to our organization is what we want to do is not just help more kids, but help more kids really well. So it's the expansion of what we do best in terms of driving outcomes for kids, and we need more of those programs to serve more kids in our community.
It's a little bit of a science question, but I read an article from the UK today that said increasing evidence that autism begins before birth. That probably doesn't surprise a doctor like yourself, because this is all neurological. What have they learned? What's new?
You know, there's increasing evidence pointing that something is either happening shortly after birth or even while in utero. And I think some of the evidence is anything from women who are contracting a flu during pregnancy, but you're talking about like fractions of a percentage that are increased risk, right? You know, there's been things over the years about pesticides potentially causing problems. There's been lots of things, but we know that there's probably a strong genetic component. There's probably an environmental component. And there's probably a genes-environment interaction. Teasing all that out is a really difficult part to be able to accomplish.
Quick follow-up to that. In this, I know that at SARC you diagnose autism and you treat autism, but do you rule out autism as often? And is there a possibility that with this increase in numbers, is there a possibility that there's something out there that looks like autism that isn't?
I think so. I think that's certainly a possibility. At SARC, we're really careful with verifying diagnoses on the kids that we work with, because we want to make sure that the money that's being raised in our community is really supporting those kids with autism. You know, that said, I mean, there are kids that are going to have overlapping symptoms, and these kids still need help too. I mean, you know, I think it's a tough thing. I mean, the idea that your kid is not talking or has very limited language is hard. Yeah. And the biggest difference in their quality of life is going to be able to get them talking. Yeah. So we've seen the opposite though too, Carrie. We've also seen kids that came in with a diagnosis and we worked them up and didn't show up, or we couldn't confirm a diagnosis as well.
Yeah, interesting.
Dr. Dan Openden, President CEO of SARC, is with us talking about autism. The new study out from the CDC, 1 in 68 U.S. children is on the autism spectrum disorder. For boys, it's 1 in 42. Girls, it's still 1 in 189, so there's a huge difference there. And I think, you know, well, I want to ask you about this research that Carrie just brought up that is coming out today. It's looking into the brain, and it actually, you know, cut up brains of you know, people with autism and kids with autism and kids without and compared them. if you're talking about cures and you're talking about you're talking like 20 years, 50 years down the future, but what that means to me is the present now, we still have this 1 in 68 that you guys are so good at SARC of dealing with, and that's got to be the priority while the research is going on, because if it happens 20 years, that's awesome, but we still have 20 years of learning and kids and skills to learn, right?
That's right. And one of the messages we want to get out there, this is there are wide individual differences in kids with autism, right? So we've always said if you met one individual with autism, you've met exactly one individual with autism. And that makes our job challenging. But here's the thing. We know that if we get kids identified early and into good early intensive behavioral intervention, they get better and good outcomes are possible. And we can see kids that are largely indistinguishable from their peers. Now, that's not for all kids, but we do see a lot of kids be able to even achieve those outcomes. The key is going to be able to identify these kids even earlier. And one of the things that's scary to me about this report, other than the fact that the numbers continue to rise, is that roughly about half of these kids were not even identified by the time they were 3, and the majority were identified by 4. We can reliably diagnose autism right now between 18 months and 2 years, and we think we're starting to get even better about identifying signs as early as, say, 14, 16 months. That's a lot of lost time. And, our best chance right now at being able to achieve the best possible outcomes is to get kids identified as infants, as toddlers, as babies, start treatment early on. And that's where we're going to see the best outcomes, where we don't even have to wait for those 20-year studies to happen.
We're going to be at SARC on Wednesday for KTAR's Action for Autism. And I know that we'll talk a lot about what you guys are most proud of from the last year, because for people listening, SARC is really the leader in this whole, I'm not even going to call it an industry, in this field. People look to you guys for all kinds of expertise. If you were to say one thing from the last year that you are most excited about finding, discovering, achieving at SARC, what is it?
One thing.
Sorry,
Wow.
one thing. We do have a few minutes.
I would. Can I give you more than one?
Yeah, you can.
One of them is our research team is continuously growing, right? So we've been always involved in genetics and pharmaceutical research, but our research director got an NIH-funded grant to create an app that will help accelerate diagnosis of autism, doing exactly what I just said.
For that.
Yeah. So they're working on that now. That would be one thing that's really exciting. A second thing goes back to what I said earlier, and that's the expansion of our best and brightest services. So you look at our preschool program, which is now serving 60 kids. Wow. And we want to continue to be able to add that. Well, we added our 4th classroom this year.
Awesome.
To be able to serve those kids. And as we look to the future, we're thinking that SARC community schools can start to pop up everywhere. And as we were just talking about, they're inclusive. So we're not even seeing the benefits of just autism, but on the typical kids as well. Yeah. Where our typical kids are making up to 18 months progress in 10 months' time.
That is awesome.
And then the other will be some of the stuff that we're doing with our adults, particularly our social enterprise programs. We just opened our second Beneficial Beans Cafe in Mesa at Adelante Healthcare. So, this is what's so unique about SARC. It's not that we're just focusing on kids. We're focusing on kids. We're focusing on research to help find answers. But then we're also looking at what do we do with all these children who are about to become adults with autism.
It's for a lifetime. And people ask about a cure all the time, and you guys have no idea. But if you can affect it while they're young and throughout the rest of their lives, you're doing them an incredible service.
Yeah, we're very careful with the word cure. I'm not sure that as a field we feel that you can say, these kids are cured of autism. But we do know that really good outcomes are possible. We do know that there are kids that, to the untrained eye wouldn't even appear to have autism if they got that good early intensive behavioral intervention. The other side of that is there's some kids that are not responsive to treatment, and that's where we need good research as well.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the beginning here, just because we see this via text. Someone's asking about the symptoms and what to look for. So I think that's important when we're talking about autism and the new numbers out that 1 in 68 U.S. children has some form of it. What is some of the things early on that you might notice as a parent?
So, one of the ones that has popped up in study after study after study, it doesn't mean you have autism, but it's a red flag, is early on not responding to your name when called. So my son is 10 months old, and even from the time he was about 3 to 4 months old, we could say, Cody, and he's looking around to see where that's coming from. You have to remember that autism is a social impairment. It's a social disorder. So typical kids are very motivated by that social engagement. My son hears his name, he wants to know what's going to happen, what good things are going to happen. Another one is no single words by 18 months of age. Really, we see single words emerge, 9 to 12 months, right around a year, sometimes a little bit later. But if at 18 months we don't have any, that tends to be a red flag. Same thing with no 2-word phrases by 24 months of age. Another one is just kids that seem to be really locked into stuff and things as opposed to social engagement.
And people and faces.
Exactly. People and faces, and often can just play alone forever. When we have parents that say, my little 3-year-old can play alone for hours without bothering anyone, that's a red flag, right?
Yeah.
That's one of those things you want to go. They should be wanting and motivated to engage in social interaction. So you're looking for those social symptoms, and you want to keep a good eye on language development.
First line of defense for a lot of these parents, first time they ask somebody is likely their pediatrician. It's not you. Is there a magic word for a parent with a pediatrician that makes the pediatrician sit up and take notice? This parent's really concerned?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have to, on some level, applaud our pediatricians because they've worked together with SARC to raise awareness of autism, and they're doing a better job at listening to parents than they were 10 or 15 years ago. We still have a long way to go, and I think the big thing that we need to hear from from pediatricians is, look, listen to families. Parents know their kids. They get that gut feeling. And when a parent comes in with a concern, take it seriously. And if you don't know, if you're not absolutely sure that you can rule it out, then refer them on to somebody who can do a real thorough evaluation. And I think the other piece is for pediatricians, I think it's really hard to be a pediatrician. You're getting parents' concerns all the time. And when you bring up the word autism, you don't know what that means and how that might scare a parent. But if we can get out to the pediatricians that we have good treatments available.
Yep.
And the worst thing that we could do is not get started. So if there's even a concern, let's look at it closely and get kids started.
Yeah, the earlier the better.
Awesome. That's why we love it, because you're right here in our backyard. This is Phoenix,
We're
Southwest
so lucky to have you
Autism
guys
Research Center. Dr. Dan Oppenden. We're going to see you on Wednesday for our Action for Autism. I hate to call it a radiothon, but it's what it is, really. Yeah, we'll be out there. You'll be out there. We'll be talking to you. Appreciate you coming by the studio. And, as these numbers continue to rise, at least we have something like SARC right here in our backyard.
Thank you very much. We appreciate KTR and this entire community who continues to stand behind us to help our kids.
All the time.
It's one of the things we're proudest of, for sure.